like $40,000. That's a lot. It was like, what does it really mean? And I looked at my mom and she's like, and I'm like, I also was more dramatic than I am now. I know I looked super confused. Why are you firing me? Did I do wrong? Seek first the kingdom and all its righteousness. All of these things will be added to you. And I was like, period. We don't have the budget. I'm like, you couldn't have told me that? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Goldie. If you are new here, thank you so much for being here. If you are a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for being here. You guys really seemed to like the last story time that I did. It was how I met my husband. So I want to continue this style of videos because not only do you guys seem to really enjoy these types of videos, but I feel like we really get to build a deeper connection, more of a relationship here on YouTube. And my goal is just, I always just speak from my personal experience. So without further ado, let's get into the story of my career path. I am 30 years old. I really just want to walk you through my journey in my 20s. Why? Because there can be so much pressure for you to have everything figured out as far as what you want to do in your life right out of high school, what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life going into college. Well, it doesn't look like that for everybody. I'm just going to start by telling you I really had no idea what I wanted to do from high school going into college. So I was a student that was like, okay, I'm going to college. That's not an option. This is just how it is. And I know that it'll make my parents proud. It'll make me proud because I will have felt accomplished, all of the things, right? So if you're in this boat, drop it in the comments. So as I was looking for colleges, I was living in Texas with my parents and my siblings at the time. I had picked 3 universities, like my A, B, and C school, and I applied. That's kind of where I want to start because a lot of you might be in that same position, or maybe you're in your early 20s, didn't go to college, and are still figuring out what do I want to do with my life. So I'm starting there for the people who might be in that season of life. However, I do want to say my mindset has shifted a lot towards college. I don't think you actually need college now to be successful. It just depends on what you want to do in life. So if you want to be a doctor, chiropractor, or something that requires schooling, then absolutely, it makes sense. For me, I ended up in entrepreneurship, and looking back, I have learned so much more just by taking action and doing the things that requires you to be an entrepreneur or a business owner that I actually didn't learn in college. Do I regret going to college? No, because to me it proved that I was able to start and finish something, stay very dedicated and committed for those 4 years and get it done and have that under my belt. I do love the feeling of I have a college degree. Nobody can take that away from me. If anything ever happened, I could go get a job with my degree, stuff like that, right? So as I was picking my 3 schools, I got accepted into one. I actually didn't get accepted into my A and B school. I got accepted into my last resort school, which was still great. It was a private university in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm gonna briefly tell you how that happened because a lot of you might be thinking, okay, cool. So what can I learn from that, from your story? Here's what I did. As a senior in high school, I literally was talking to all of my counselors, all of the people around me, letting them know like, hey, I want to go to college. Do you know of any opportunities for grants or scholarships? I was like, open mouth, open business, right? Closed mouths don't get fed. I think I've always just naturally been that way, that I like to seek out things and make things happen. My pastor at the time knew of an organization. It was like a Hispanic women's network, young high school women. I never would have found out about this organization if it wasn't for my pastor at the time. That's something that I always recommend to people who don't really know what they want to do in life. Just talk about it, talk through it, tell people around you, because that opens doors. It's really not what you know, it's who you know. Like when I found out about this organization, I put all my eggs in that basket to get the scholarship. So there was about, I want to say like 50 girls running for the top 3 scholarships, and they ranged anywhere from $40,000 to, I want to say like 60,000, depending on the school. So it would match the school that you got into. The requirement was like keep your grades really high, a certain GPA, meetings every single Saturday early, spend the day at the workshop with the network, and you basically had to put in the hours, put in the work, write essays and assignments, and it was a lot of rigorous things. But I was so determined to get this scholarship because one thing I did know, yes, I wanted to go to college, but no, I never wanted to be in debt. And I didn't want my parents to have to pay a dime for my education. That was just my personal goal. Like, if your parents are able to do that and they want to do that, I think that's amazing. I would tell God about this all the time, like, please help me figure this out, get me into the school that you think is best for me, help me to find the financial backing for this because I don't want to be in debt, right? So after that program ended, I at this point can't even remember how long it was. It must have been a couple of months in my senior year. And so there was 50 girls running for 3 scholarships. At the final gala event, the final award ceremony, it was a crazy thing because I was like, oh my gosh, like there's 50 of us, 3 of us are winning the scholarship. At that final ceremony, they named first, the second school, and I was like, okay, well, there's one more scholarship left, like $40,000. That's a lot. I was sitting there with my mom at the award ceremony thinking, my heart was beating. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is the final moment after months and months of work, hoping, desiring, putting in all my effort, turning in all of the assignments. When they started to describe the winner, I'm like, okay, that sounds a lot like me. Is this about to be my moment? Like, what? Out of all the people in the room, I'm telling you, you guys, like, there were so many other girls there that were like far outranked me, if you will. I was like, what? Is it really me? And I looked at my mom and she's like, and I'm like, they pulled an excerpt from my application letters, like why I should get this $40,000 scholarship. And they read it and they said, you know, this girl has been resilient through tons of change, because I lived in California right before I went to high school. So my family like uprooted to Texas, so I had to start completely over. So my 4 years of high school, I was the brand new girl. I had no friends. I didn't know anyone. We barely knew anyone in the entire city, state, really. It was very different going to a tiny town in Texas. So when they started reading that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's me. Oh my gosh, it's me. And they're like, please welcome to the stage, Claudia Gonzalez. At the time I was Gonzalez. I was like, dumbfounded. I don't know. I was speechless, kind of like I'm scrambling right now. That is how I felt. I started to shake. I was like, oh my God. I look at my mom. My mom's like crying and I'm like shocked. So I go up there. I received the award that day. That's how I was able to pay for my entire school, you guys. I can tell you all of the things, like, you know, put in the work, yes, put in the time, put in the effort, open mouth, open business, talk to everybody you know, network. But the most important thing, and I have to give credit, I always have, it was God. That was such a God thing for me. He gifted me that. He lifted me up above. He brought me to the attention of the committee that was choosing that. There's just like, in my human thoughts, it's like there was so many people they could have picked. They picked me. And I credit that as favor because I am a child of God and I've always believed that. I've always believed there is favor. Just like the Bible says, asking you shall receive. He will lift you up. He will make you the head and not the tail. There's so many verses in the Bible. Seek first the kingdom and all its righteousness. All of these things will be added to you. And I was like, period. That is what I believe. Like, that is my God, you know, blessing me and helping me through all these things. So, okay, cool. Go to college, knock it out in 4 years, because I was like, that was my allotted time for the money, the lump sum. It was divided into those 4 years. So I basically ended up choosing business because I really had no other interest in anything else. I was done by the age of, I had just turned 22. I was really convinced I want to be a vice president of marketing one day. My degree is business administration with an emphasis in marketing and in management. So I was like, for sure, I want to go into corporate. I want to have a good 401k. I want to have paid time off. I want to climb up the ladder, all of the things. Right out of college, I had an internship. It was very great because I was being paid as a senior in college. And when it was time for me to graduate, they did hire me on full time. I was there for about maybe 6 months, full time, freshly out of college. It was a credit union. I do remember that. It was also in Fort Worth, Texas. It was all good and dandy until one day I get called into the CEO's office. I just remember her being like extremely blunt, extremely to the point, not emotional. She was
like, you know what, I think it's time for you and our credit union to part ways.
So please gather your stuff. This is your last day. Basically, they fired me. And I was like, I mean, I was so young at the time and I didn't have that great of communication skills, especially in a situation like that. I didn't really even ask why. I was like, okay. I know I looked super confused, like, why are you firing me? What did I do wrong? But at the same time, I was kind of so like carefree. I was like, okay. She escorts me to my desk. I start packing up. I'm out. Here's what I didn't say yet. I wasn't happy there. It was so boring. I'm like, what is this? This is like so monotonous, boring. There was no real direction, no vision for the company. So I just kind of started to get bored. My creativity was like shot. I was in the marketing department, but it was like me and an older gentleman. They kind of just created that department. There was no real direction. So come to find out, my other friend at the time, we were the only two there in our 20s. Everybody else was like older. It was a budget cut. So there was like a budget cut. They're like, okay, well, let's get rid of the two youngest people, you know, like it's fine. I had really no experience. That was like my first job ever out of college. It kind of hurt, but at the same time, I was like, okay, now what? And I was very blessed to live at home at the time with my parents in Texas, so I didn't have like financial burdens really. I was living with them, which I'm very grateful for. So I call up my old manager from Hollister. I used to work part-time as a sales associate at Hollister through college, and she was like, oh my gosh, perfect, like come work with us. You actually need a college degree to be a manager here at Hollister, like an Abercrombie, like that whole umbrella. I was like, really? Oh my gosh, like, well then let's do it in the meantime that I find another job. So worked in retail with my college degree. And you know what, you guys, I actually loved it. I really loved working retail more than like a desk job like at corporate, because I was like up on my feet. I'm very social. I love to talk to people, help people, like, oh my gosh, girl, that looks so cute on you. That was super fun to me. And at the same time, it was like very interesting because I was like, I have a whole college degree, you know, and I'm like, working retail, is that what society thinks as successful? So you might be thinking, I'm in this situation, I may or may not have a college degree, or I may be this age. You might sometimes feel like, well, what does society think about this? This isn't success. You know, a lot of the times I think society thinks of like a big girl job as a desk job, and you're sitting there and you have benefits and you clock in and you clock out and you have whatever, a company card, blah, blah, blah. Those are all great. But what I'm trying to get at here halfway through this video is that society's definition of success is skewed. It's not something you should take to heart or you should make your standard. Like, we are all so different. Individuality has become one of the most important things in my like repertoire of viewpoints towards humanity, towards people in general. We are all different. What society expects, I don't think is the right way to measure your success, your happiness. Are you happy? You know, like I was not happy at that first job after college. And then I was so happy at my retail job. I did feel the pressure to make more money and to have something that's a little bit more notable, whatever. I continue to do the networking thing just casually as I meet people I knew, like, hey, I'm in between jobs, I'm looking for a job, preferably in marketing. I have my degree in business, and I was on LinkedIn at the time, just kind of out there, really trying to find something that I would be good at and I would enjoy and I would make more money. And my mom puts me in contact with one of her girlfriends. That girlfriend's mom was a director or president of customer service of a aerospace paint and sealant company. So it was a company that made paint for aircrafts and the sealant for aircraft. In the aerospace industry, it sounded great. So I applied, and it really helped that I had that connection because I ended up getting hired on. Don't get me wrong, looking back, I mean, at that point I was like, what, 23? 24. I know I could have made a very nice career out of that position coming from customer service. Learned the ropes very quickly. One thing I can say about being young, not having that much experience, for me, I was very kind of reckless and impatient and angsty. Kind of was a little too careless. So I started working at this aerospace company, and it was legit. It was fun. The people were great. They told me, we have a program that will pay for your MBA if you would like to continue your education, and then you would commit 5 more years to us and we would like promote you, things like that. So me hearing that, I'm like, let's take action now. I'm down, and I was maybe like a couple months in. I apply and I look for the schools, and I look to do an online one. And it was actually Pepperdine University here in California, and I was living in Texas working that aerospace job. I was like, okay, well, if you're gonna pay for it, I'm getting an MBA from a school that I want to go to and visit once or twice a year, even though it's online, because in the back of my head, I always wanted to move back to California. Kind of like I told you guys at the beginning. Grew up in California, and when it was time to go to high school, we moved to Texas. So I was always kind of trying to find a way to move back to California, meet somebody and get married, go to school, find a job here. So I applied to school. The company declines the entire thing. They're like, no, you haven't been here long enough. But it was like such bad communication that they didn't bother telling me that until I had paid the like application fee, applied, and got in. They're like, actually, no, we're not gonna do that. It's too soon. We don't have the budget. I'm like, you couldn't have told me that at the beginning before I did all this. So I was like,
if y'all aren't paying for this, I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying any grand.
No. Not going into debt for that. I refused. Okay, that didn't work. I stuck with it for a little bit longer. I grew very, 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 very painfully unhappy at that corporate job. I was like, what is my life? I also was more dramatic than I am now. So I'm like, I'm just withering away here. I'm not growing. I'm not getting promoted. I'm capped. I don't see like a future. I didn't have a vision. I was young and immature. Let me go ahead and like paint that picture too, because it was a good job. To be fair to that job, I could have stuck with it, maybe got promoted to sales and stuff like that. It just would have taken years, just like any career to be successful, right? It would have taken years and years and years and years and years. And hopefully they didn't have layoffs at some point or budget cuts. I just know that if I had the mindset and the attitude that I do now, I could have been way more successful in that position and had a way better perspective and outlook. But I was just too impatient. So that was like the whole year of 2016. At the end of 2016, take a trip to California with my family to come see everybody. And that is when I met my husband. That is the story time that's doing extremely well. I'll make sure to link it somewhere up here. Visited California, I came back home, and I was just like so miserable to be back in Texas at that job. I just knew that there was so much more that I could offer that I wasn't able to make happen there. So as I started talking to this guy who's now my husband, I was like, got to the point where I was comfortable enough to kind of just vent to him. Poor thing. He tried to like coach me through the anxiety attacks I was having and the anger issues I was having, helped me through that. But the more we got serious in our relationship, that's when he was like, well, you know, I do have a CrossFit gym. I do own that. I do own a meal prep service. But if, he said, hear me out, we got married, you move out here, and when you do, you take over the meal prep and you get to run with this company, make it whatever you want, and build the business. And I was like, yes, like absolutely. It's just an opportunity of a lifetime. Be a business owner. I had tried several things. I tried YouTube for a year and it did good for the first year, but I stopped. I didn't have the long-term mindset. And then I tried to do real estate, investing, not a realtor. So I got myself into classes. Like I started all of these little things, but never stuck with anything. Then when Jonathan told me like, you can take over this company that I have and build it, I said, okay. We ended up getting married quickly. 7 months of meeting each other, and I started to take over. I started to do the day-to-day with him in CrossFit, work on the marketing for that, like the Instagram. I did the meal prep business, so that was like my introduction to entrepreneurship, and I'm so thankful. That was when I was 25. I jumped in. Of course this happens, my camera died. I just wanted to say, keep going, keep learning about yourself, keep doing the inner work, because it is so worth it to figure yourself out and talk to God about all of it. I will see you guys in the next story time, in the next video. Please consider liking and subscribing. Talk to you soon. Bye.